y'all, I'm Hope here at Crafty Hope, and welcome. It is the last video for ICAD 2024. In this video, I'm going to be sharing with you the index card a day I made for days 58, 59, 60, and 61. This challenge comes from Tammy Garcia. I'll have her links below. She gives daily prompts and weekly themes for you to create on an index card every day for each day in June and July. So as it is now the end of October, yeah, it's time to finish this up. So in addition to Tammy's prompts, my friend Nina Fickett also has what she calls Mixed Media ICAD, and it is additional prompts that you can use during those 61 days. So, I write those on the back of each of my cards for each day as they're issued, and then when it comes around time to do those cards, I kind of make a decision right then about whether or not I'm going to use those prompts. So, on this day, which is day 58, the prompt from Tammy was tessellation, and the Mixed Media ICAD prompt was tint of a color. Now, I ended up just going with tessellation, and as you can see, used that stencil with some crackle paste. I did that on top of a jelly print that I stuck down with my Uhu glue stick, and I used, what does that say, Deco Art crackle paste through the stencil. I did leave that to dry naturally to see, what it would do. I did, as you saw, try to take a Tim Holtz Distress stain and put it into the cracks of that, of the crackle paste. To no avail, really. It didn't really add much of anything. So I've got a bit of, oh my gosh, what sprays were those? That was a Lindy's spray, I believe, and probably like, shabby turbine teal, and then that looks like it's a distress oxide in, I can't think what it's called, y'all. I'll put it below. It's the orange one. Spiced Marmalade, maybe? That might be it. I'll put it below. But I just wanted some color, and I don't know why I picked exactly those colors. Maybe I wanted that to look more like that jelly print, because they didn't, I don't know, they're exactly like the jelly print on there. I did take a Stabilo all pencil in black and scribble it all over that card and then activate it with water. And really, again, I was trying to grunge that up a little bit more, as well as make a little grunge on those cracks. I wanted those cracks to feel kind of grungy. So from there, I start just kind of pulling out random things from one of my scrap bins, trying to find little bits of anything that will stick on there. At this point in the 61-day project, I had realized that I was really loving any kind of 3D assemblage feeling elements. And so that's what I was kind of doing, just pulling whatever I could into this. And so you can see I've got several scraps of paper, some lace, a fake stamp, a button here, some kind of scrapbooking piece. So yeah, I've got all those little bits, and I was like, okay, you know what? I'll arrange it when it's time. I swiped them off of that card, and then I'm coming back in with a fine liner. This is, y'all, I think this is just some black acrylic paint, maybe a fluid acrylic, and water. That's all I've got in here. And I am going to do a bunch of circles kind of grouped up together. Now, I am going to fully admit to y'all, I hate this background. I do not like it. The card itself, like, I love the little stack that I'm going to create on this card, but the background makes me so crazy. It's far too busy. It's insane. It's insane. So yeah, you get to see me make this insanity. So once I get a bunch of little circles, I'm trying to make sure in that idea of tessellation that it goes for the full length of the area. And so I'm covering every little bit of this. And then I'm going to do the unthinkable, y'all. It's not completely unthinkable, but I'm going back over all of these circles, kind of making them splotchy and sketchy. I tend to like really sketchy lines when I do doodles like this. So I am going to, turn that directly over. I saw that I got, some of that paint already on the back. So to prevent making a further mess, I used not a paper towel, a towel. I used a towel to smash it down and smear all of that. And I realized it was getting super dark, so I wanted some pop of bright white. So I'm using, this is a whiteout pen made by Bic, and it does a fantastic job of bringing in a pop of white. So I kind of just went randomly over a couple of the circles, and you can see I kind of stuck more towards the left and didn't do so many on the right because I knew I was going to do this little stack. So I'm bringing in all these little elements I had gathered. I've got a little cluster of watercolored flowers that I'm going to just pull out one of those, and making this really random stack of stuff that I'm gonna stick down on here. And you can see I've got all these little things down, and this isn't the order they're gonna be here with. It was just kind of like, okay, here's some stuff. Does all the stuff go together? Yep. Let's glue it down. So I'm going to use my Oohoo glue stick to put that first piece down. And then for some reason I decided, you know what else this needs? This chaos, this big bunch of things, it needs some gold. So I pulled out my Liquitex acrylic ink in bright gold and a fan brush. I dipped it in some water, dipped it in that gold ink, and I'm just going to town, splattering it. And of course, I'm gonna dry it. So, gonna dry that real quick before I go back to gluing. And I don't know if I was in a rush this day or if I was trying not to overthink this. But yeah, y'all, I mean, it works. Like I said, this stack is great. I've got a lot of neutral tones on here. And it does help bring it forward a bit, but it's still that background. I wish I had figured out some way to tame it, but I'm honestly believing I was in a rush on the day that I did this. So, and I'm sticking everything down with that Oohoo. Didn't matter if it's fabric or lace or whatever. I did grab my Uniball Signal Gold gel pen to add a couple of gold little dots in the center of that flower, simply because there's that gold in the background, and I thought it would be nice to bring some of that gold kind of forward into the focal. Now I've got a piece of a what was I've been playing with. I don't know, maybe, I don't know. I'm looking at my card sitting in front of me, and I'm looking at what's going on here, and I'm like, that doesn't seem right. I did use the Tim Holtz metallic stickers and the phrase "believe in yourself." There's what we're gonna do. And I have it's a little piece of the webbing that's on the back of a book spine. And I didn't like it over there on that side. So I moved it down below. I'm going to stick down my sentiment. And then I'm going to pull out some thread. I think I am anyway. Let's see what happens here. I put some thread on a needle. And this is like a minty green color, which kind of goes, I guess, with all the greens in the background. And I'm using this. I've been loving the feel of stitches on these cards, the motion of it, the way it adds texture to them. But also, since I put that like book spine webbing on there, I wasn't sure how well it would hold. And these stitches, I think, are going to make sure that stays on there. So I'm just going to put several little stitches across the bottom. And I don't know if you remember, I had a button that I had in that original stack, and I'm going to end up stitching it, well, kind of stitching it. You'll see what I do. So here's that button. I'm thinking, I kind of moved it around, thought maybe I'd stick it over there with the stitches, and you can see I don't have much of that thread left. So it's like, am I sure that's where I want to put this? Where am I going to put this? So I really liked it with that weird little stack of things. So I'm going to stitch it so that it ties in the front. So I go in through the front, and then and and I'm just going to make like an X on there and then tie it in the front and trim it, and I will fray the edges of the thread after I trim it. It's another way I like to add texture to things. That bit of thread is always just a bit of yummy texture. So once I get that tied up, I am going to ink the edges of this card with some black soot distress ink just to frame it up, add a little bit of extra grunginess. It also helps like the white parts of the inside pop a little bit more when you've got that black edging to it. So, seems like I need to glue a little bit more. And then I'm going to give you a quick look at this card, but there's going to be some detail shots at the end if you want a better look at what all went into that stack. All right, guys, we will get to the next card here in just a second. On day 59, the two prompts were circle and permanent marker. And as soon as I saw those, I knew I wanted to do a neurographic doodle. So we'll get to how that's formed. But first thing first, I wanted to add a little bit of texture to the background and keep this super simple. So I'm pulling papers from my scrap bin, which is what I do when it comes to time to create a background for the most part. The previous one where I just used a single piece of paper, that jelly print, not my typical MO. So this time I am using, like I said, different things that are in my scrapbook, different book pages and scrapbooky pages and bits of whatever. And I'm using some fluid matte medium and a little silicone spatula thing to get it all down. So I thought I had sped this up a little bit faster. Neurographic doodling, I'm going to go ahead and mention to you while you can watch me collage, is a technique. I believe it was some kind of maybe neuroscientist in Russia, somebody in Russia, that created this idea, and you can look up the kind of history of it and all of that. But the basic way to do it is you start with shapes or some kind of shape in the middle, and then you draw unique lines that crisscross around on your substrate. So once I get this dry, I'm going to start with some, and my favorite thing to use to do the neurographic doodles are permanent markers, Sharpie markers. So I like to get one of the big packs of Sharpie markers that include the fine tip markers, the thicker tip markers, and the ultra fine markers. But anyway, so I am tracing a couple of these stencil circles on here, making sure that a couple of them, I'm only going to put 3 on there, and 2 of them are going to go off the card just so that it feels like it's flowing around on there. And then I'm going to do these kind of just from one edge of the card to another edge, these kind of like wavy, liney shapes. I'm not being concerned about whether or not they go through the circles or not. I wanted to make sure that each side of this card had at least 1 or 2 like start or beginning. Once you have made your lines and your shapes and all of that, you come in, and where your lines intersect at that angle, you are going to curve that angle on the inside. No, it's kind of hard to see here. I'm going to zoom this in a second, but I'm starting to realize that my paper is not completely dry here. So I'm going to dry it real quick, and then hopefully this is a better look at me doing that. So where the lines intersect, see, it's hard to see even now because my finger's in the way. But you can see in each of those like 4 corners, I'm just going in and adding a little bit of a curve to it. So I hope you're going to be able to see this, but you can at least see the before and after. I've sped this up quite a bit, but I do want to tell you, you can see I'm working with that fine tip Sharpie there to start this off. Once I go through with the fine tip one, I will come in with my ultra fine Sharpie to clean up my lines a little bit, clean up those areas I've curved. But once you get done with doing this, the idea is that it looks like neurons in a sense. At least that does to me. The first time I heard neurographic doodling, that's what it made me think of, was the way that synapses and neurons kind of intersect. So, yeah, but I think to me, this is a very meditative process. It's one of those things you don't have to think about. You don't have to try to make anything specific. You've got those circles in there, and you'll see I will accentuate those in the end, but everybody has kind of their own way of going about this. I would definitely, if you're interested in this or this piques your interest, go out there, see there's some amazing stuff done with this technique. But if you want to know more about the science behind it, definitely go research it because I am not an expert. As you can see, I've brought in here that ultrafine Sharpie, and even in the detail shots at the end, you're going to see I'm not going to get this super perfect. I'm not trying to make it perfect, just less bothersome to me. That big Sharpie, it's, yeah, I don't get the connections that I want with it. So I'm about to be finished with it here. So that is both circle and permanent marker, both of those prompts. This is how it inspired me. I'm sure that plenty of other people saw those two prompts or used those prompts in some other way. So now that I've got those done, I am going to come in here with my set or one of my sets of watercolors, and I'm going to get a little bit of blue because I've already got blue's my favorite, y'all. It's just my favorite. And I am going to paint inside those circles that I had previously created. So that kind of lets you see where those circles were, and it's going to give them a neat texture because of the lines that are kind of intersecting in there. And I really love that. So this to me is super fun because it's got the like neutral colors there in the background, but then I'm bringing this pop of blue in. I'm not trying to be super fussy about it, but just, make sure I stay in those lines. And that's kind of what's important to me about using the permanent marker for this process. If I do bring anything wet in, I don't want it to move around. So from there, I'm kind of looking at that card, and I love the opportunity to doodle within the shapes that are in there. So what I decided to do from there is instead of using watercolor, I'm going to bring in my little yogurt cup of coffee, because some of those papers that are on there kind of have that same color as coffee does, and I'm gonna do some straight lines just using a thin paintbrush here, and do straight lines within some of those larger shapes that are on this card that I had doodled. So I'm gonna go around and do that. Like I said, the whole process with the neurographic doodling is very meditative to me. It's a lot of the same motions, and I think it's a lot. Well, I haven't done much Zen tangling either, so maybe it's not as meditative as that is, but it's, to me, that similar motion over and over again has that feel to it. So I'm gonna fill in a couple of these spaces with these straight lines, and then once I get them done, I'm gonna doodle inside those blue shapes inside the circles. So I'll do that with a unit ball Signo white gel pen. I think the hardest part I had with this was this portion of it, because I decided that I wanted every single doodle I did on here, or at least for the most part, I wanted them to all be different, and that was frustrating to go, okay, well, what shape do I feel like doing now? And so, and it's not important. Nobody's ever going to notice that these are all completely different shapes or whatever. I really should have just, had some kind of pattern or something. I really enjoy doing the straight lines like I did with the coffee, and I did do that, I think in one, maybe, maybe two of Well, it looks like, okay, I'm looking at the card, and some of the circles I did that, or some of the shapes on the circle I did that. So, and I looks like looking at this, I did not come back in with the ultrafine Sharpie, which I should have done to go over some of those gold marks that went over my black line. So that's something I might can come back in now and fix now that I'm thinking about it. So that's what's great about this, is if there's something you don't like or whatever, draw another line, fill something in, fix it, you know. So I'm just getting these doodles in there. I'm going to see how much longer we've got. So once I get those in there, I'm going to grab my ink blender with some walnut stain distress ink on it, and ink the edges of this card. Again, like in that first card, inking the edges of it help frame this up to me. It gives it that like dark on the edges that make what's in the center kind of pop a little bit more. The wider spaces and all of that pop a little bit more. So you can see I'm turning this and kind of looking at it and being like, oh my gosh, what can I do here? What can I do there? And finally, yeah, I'm finished finished with the doodles. And I'm adding that, like I said, the framing up of it with the distress ink. Oh, and something came off on my ink blender. All right, so from there, really all I wanted to add was a sentiment. So I'm gonna grab these are Tim Holtz label stickers, and I think it takes me a second to figure out which one I want to use, and I end up using the one that says "Do what you love," because I do love doing these neurographic doodles, and it just felt right. So as soon as I saw those two prompts, I was like, oh well, I'm gonna do one of those things I really love to do, which is those doodles. So I'll put that down, and then I'll use my Stabilo all pencil in black to just go under that and activate it, so I have a bit of black shadow on there. And that'll be it. Like the last one, I'm gonna let you have a quick look at this before we get to the next one. On day 60, the two prompts are planetarium and gouache. Now, I kind of knew I wouldn't be able to work planetarium, and unless it just kind of came about organically, it wasn't something I could, I don't know, just immediately feel like it was working. So, without it feeling contrived. So instead, I was like, well, I can use gouache. Absolutely. You can see on the left, I've got it's not a little, I think it's 24. It's jelly gouache that I got on Amazon some time ago, and I forget about it. So when I open it here in a little bit, you're going to see what condition it's in. But to start this, I am once again covering the surface with some collage from my scrap papers, and this time I'm just using my Oohoo glue stick, covering the whole card. Now, I've mentioned this in probably every other one of the ICAD videos in this playlist, but I really love starting with a bit of collage on these cards. It gets over that fear of the white page. It kind of gives me a creative warm up. It lets me think about what I want to do next. And yeah, it just gives me the busy hands that I kind of crave. So, and you can see I decided to cover up every single white surface on that ICAD. I should also mention, for all of these ICADs, I have worked with, they are heavyweight index cards that I found, I think, y'all, just at Walmart, and like last year sometime, and was like, oh, I could use these for ICAD because they're a heavier weight. And I don't know, I found them in my stash and was like, hey, I didn't realize I had these. So something like that does exist. Most index cards you find at like Walmart and places, not Walmart, at like the Dollar Tree and stuff like that, are lighter weight, and they always warp on me. And these, yes, have still warped even though they're heavier weight, but yeah. So once I got everything collaged, you can see I took a little bit of my instant coffee, reactivated it, and just painted around on my card and did some splatter. Now I am bringing in that container of gouache, and you can see the cracking and pulling from the sides. It is super dried. These jelly gouaches are usually a jelly consistency. Mine are not, but I knew I could just reactivate them with some water, which is what I did. Sprayed some water on it. I've got a good wet paintbrush. I also, to try to preserve these, I have some of that, I think it's Glad press and seal that I keep over it. And then there's a snap-on, like, airtight lid that goes on top of these. So, but I've had these for years and they haven't seemed to mold or do anything weird. But like I said, I've been keeping that press and seal over the top of them. So, anyway, just did a little bit of mark making with the gouache using a dark blue, did just some little lines on there, and then grabbed, I think that's hot pink, y'all, that which is a little unusual for me, but I knew it would be nice and it would pop. So I just did splatter with that hot pink, and then I'm going to take a minute to seal up. I think I need a new I might need a new little piece of that press and seal on there. That one's starting to get a little ratty on me. So I'm going to put my gouaches up, and I think I'm going to go ahead and dry this card before moving on to the next thing. Now, these last two cards, this one and the next one, I really like. Granted, I like all four of these, but y'all know that first one was super crazy for me. That background just felt too much. A simple background like this one with just some collage, a little bit of something that integrates everything, whether it's coffee or gesso or something like that, and then some marks. That's all I really need for a background. What happened on that first one? I don't even know. So I decided to soften this one up by bringing a little bit of lace in, and I'm going to play with this little piece of lace forever. And for a focal, I decided to use one of my Tim Holtz not photo booth. What are those called? Paper dolls. It's a Tim Holtz paper doll. I found this couple. It's a bride and groom. It looks like, yeah. And I kept trying to make that lace kind of be with the bride, kind of to pick up on her veil and her dress and all that, but I really just wasn't loving it. So it's going to end up being actually on the left side of this card. I think the white of it really I don't know, looked really nice behind the gentleman because he had like the darker coat and all of that. So it just felt better. So you're getting to see me do a little bit of my futzing and moving things around and trying to figure things out. I did decide to do a little bit more mark making on here. So I'm making these bow shapes on here with a pen. This is a cheap rollerball pen from the Dollar Tree. They are the R2 pens by Inc. Brand, which is a Dollar Tree office supply brand. But yeah, I love these because right after you use them, you can hit them with a little bit of water and make the ink blur. Now, if you want something that is not going to be hit by water, these are not it. Now, once they dry, they're a little more stable, but I really love to use them this way to hit them. And even you can see, I think in the detail shots maybe, that even when I hit these with water on some of those papers that were more absorbent, they didn't blur the same way they do on other papers. So it's interesting to see how different things react on different paper types. I decided to go ahead and ink up the edges of this card, again, framing it up, making it look nice, and then I'm going to play with this just a little bit more and then take this to my sewing machine. Oh, I'm going to ink up the couple first. Yes, I inked them up and then decided to take the lace and the card to my sewing machine and go around the whole outside edge with a zigzag stitch. And that stitched on the lace as well as gave another border to the card itself. I also took a minute to take a piece of paper. This is just from from a book. I don't know. I like the aging on it, and I typed up the words "happily ever after." I thought that worked well with a married couple. You know, that's how all the storybook endings go. So, So I thought that was nice. It would have been really nice if this been my last card to have put happily ever after. I think I even said that for this card on Instagram. But no, that didn't work out that way for me. So I did ink up that little bit of typed book paper, and I'm going to use my Fabri-Tac to glue down this paper doll because it is a heavier weight paper. But then I'm just going to use my Oohoo glue stick to stick down that little bit of book paper. And that'll be it for card number 60. We've just got one more to go, and we're going to get to it here. And I end every one of these in just a second. So we're going to get to that here, okay? It is the last card, y'all, for ICAD 2024. I can't even. But the prompts on this day, as I showed, are diorama and spine from a book. You can see I've pulled out a spine from a book, along with a whole lot of other things. I've got some mica tiles there, and a resin frame, and just, yeah, a bunch of things. And I really am going to throw a little bit of everything at this card. I think I wanted to go out with a bit of a bang. And this one, yeah, I like it, but it is all the things. To start it, I am once again using that Oohoo glue stick and some collage. I've got a bit of texture. That black piece down there is some craft cardstock that I painted with gesso, ran it through the embossing machine, and added, I think, some Tim Holtz foundry wax on it. So that in itself is all the things. And then there's some underpaper and some matte paper with ink on it, and just, y'all, I'm pulling out all kinds of stuff. I really love my underpaper there, and I think it's one of the many reasons I like to use an underpaper. I know it creates a messy desk, and a lot of people do not like that, do not like I don't know. There are people that are turned off by my messy desk. I get that. But this texture, this paper that I get from it, really is kind of worth it. So y'all let me know. Does the messy desk make it hard for you to watch my videos? If it does, let me know. I'm trying to get better about it, but sometimes it's just I'm ready to create and I don't have time for all that business. Once I finished covering the card, as I said, just getting all that white off, I start playing with some of the fabrics and laces I've got there, making a little stack of them. I found this little butterfly that I apparently had cut out at some point, and was determined to get it on this card. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and just stick it down. I liked it in that one spot there because there wasn't a whole lot of texture in there. The other bits have like that underpaper and color and a pop of something, whereas that little spot didn't. And then I've got this bit of lace that I just put the Oohoo straight on my card and stuck the lace into it. And that's it, y'all. And so now I'm going to mess about. This is somebody sent me something that was sewed together. I liked the paper. I pulled the paper apart and I kept the little bits of where it was sewn. And it has added a lot of texture and different things where I've just glued it down. So lots of little things coming in. I kept trying to add other bits of lace and everything, but I kept finding that it was covering up that bit of black texture, which I was really loving. So after futzing for a while, I was like, let me go ahead and alter this resin frame and figure it out. So this resin frame comes from a mold from Finnabair, and I think it's just called, I'll try to find it and link it below, but I think it's just called like Decorative Frames or something like that, but I'll link it. I used it in some I think it's Easy Cast resin. It's a quick cure resin that, y'all, really is super quick. You have to work with it absolutely fast or it will cure before you can get it out of your mixing thing. So I coated all of it with some black gesso. I'm actually going to put 2 coats on there, but I'm only showing you one of them because I put 1 coat on, I'm going to dry it, and then add a second coat. So, yeah, I'm starting to mess with that book spine. This was a chunky monkey. I'd recently torn apart a bunch of books that I had received, And I kept all the book spines, so I'm trying to make some paper packs with those too. Right now, I do have some ephemera packs in my Etsy shop. If you're interested in some mixed media goodness, I have a video here as well on YouTube that shows what an example of what's in one of those packs. If you missed that, so um, I don't have any book spines in there, but I might. If y'all are interested in book spines, let me know. I might be able to pull some of those out. I've got a little baggie full of them that I've just got stashed away for use. So from there, I decided for some reason to, after I got the 2 coats of black gesso, decided to paint this red, which was hard to go over the black gesso. I think I didn't know what I was going to do, and black tends to be, I get better coverage with a black gesso than I do with the white. So I did paint that red, dry it, and now you can see I'm coming in with a 2nd coat of red. This is simply a Martha Stewart craft paint, so I'm not using any kind of like fancy paint or anything. This is just what I had, and I, for some reason, wanted red. So I'm getting, and I think I was just feeling experimental, plus the red kind of goes with that butterfly that I had stuck down. So I thought, okay, we're gonna play on that. Then I grabbed some gold acrylic paint that I am going to dry brush on, basically cover the majority of this. But I am using you can see I kind of took some of the excess paint off, and I'm just, covering the whole thing, making sure some of that red shows. You'll see, hopefully, in the detail shots, and as I move that piece of that resin frame around, that at certain angles that red shows up. Now before I moved on, I did take my favorite Americana craft paint in sea glass, and I am using my finger to just hit the tops of all of that with this little touch of pale blue green. And that's it that I'm going to do with that frame. So I love these assemblagey elements, and this one kind of just, like I said, it's chaos. I threw a little bit of everything at it, but it really fed my like assemblage soul, which is one of my favorite things, and it makes me think a little bit more of, granted, ICAD ended a while ago, but this really makes me consider the path I want to take with some of my art moving forward, and kind of the bringing of all the things together, because I have a lot of things. If you saw, the 100-day project did a 21-day project during oh gosh, we're in October. Was it this month? Maybe. And I did like a craft cleanup, a craft and office cleanup to try to regain everything after the 100-day project and after ICAD and everything. So kind of reclaim my space. So um, and as I've done that, I've discovered some of the things that were in my stash that, I like and want to use. So that's what's been going on here. You can definitely check out all that on Instagram. Make sure to follow me there. You'll see, a lot more about what's going on. I haven't actually posted in a couple days because it's been my birthday week this week. Yesterday was my birthday. I started recording this video on that day, and this is the following morning. So I've been, been a little whatever. So let myself kind of celebrate as what I see fit. So I am using the Fabri-Tac to stick down that book spine. I'm going to start to use the Fabri-Tac. Well, first I found a button that already had thread in it, so I'm not even going to bother sewing it. I'm just going to stick it down with the thread and all right there. I felt like it added a little more texture over on that right side, along with more of the white to contrast against that black. Now I wanted a phrase, of course. I have to have a phrase in there, and I wanted one that would fit inside that frame. So I end up finding one that says "Own Your Story," and it is just barely small enough to fit in there. So I am gonna use my glue stick to stick it down. And then I will start to use the Fabri-Tac resin piece down, but end up using some E6000 because, that's my cure-all for everything. So I will glue that down, and y'all, that will finish up the card. Whew, and I think I did ink that card with, oh, it was either black soot or walnut stain. I'll have the links to all those below. So you're going to get looks at all four of these cards. I did clamp, something, there's a word. Use clothespins to clamp that together while it dried. So here is a look at these last four cards. If you have any questions about any of my process or suggestions or things you want to see from me or things you want from my stash or links to things or whatever, if you just, you know, um, yeah, if you just have any kind of question or whatever, I'd be happy to answer that for you. I am so glad you came by, spent this time with me, and what are we gonna do next, y'all? The 100-day project is over. ICAD is over. I've gotta start doing some art journaling. So maybe that's what you'll see from me next. Maybe something else. I don't know. We'll see. Thank you for watching this, and I will see y'all later. Bye.